Please feel free to join my Discord server to send video requests, chill, and just chat about various different topics. Link is in the description down below, and if you're watching this late, don't worry, I made sure it can't expire. Hope to see you all there. Hello everyone, this is Daikaiju SpaceZilla approaching you, and welcome to another episode of Toho Kaiju Marathon. Today we're going to take a look at the second legendary kaiju film by Ishido Honda, Rodan. While Oda's sequel to Honda's famous story about a giant nuclear lizard failed both critically and financially, Toho decided to get Ishido Honda and his crew back to work on their next kaiju film, hoping for superior results. This time going with a completely new monster with a pterosaur used as a template this time around. Veteran writer Kin Kudonuma wrote the original story for this film was inspired by an incident in Kentucky 1948 when Captain Thomas F. Mantle, a pilot for the Kentucky Air National Guard, died in a crash while allegedly pursuing a UFO. Takeo Murata and Kaoru Mabuchi, the latter making his genre debut under the pen name Takashi Kimura, wrote the script adding the Meganula and Rodon's Fukuoka Rampage. Their first draft called for a single Rodon who would be injured by American planes above Okinawa and killed at Mount Aso by a dynamiting team led by Shigeru. Initially, the monsters were based on the winged dinosaur Archaeotypics, but the final design was closer to a pterodon. This product coming out as a massive success in every way that broke box office records and received similar praise to the original Godzilla, for its dark tone and engaging story that was more than just a big monster movie. The movie legit starts with a f***ing cockfight, and I am dead serious when I state that. If your pervy ass mind thought I meant the other cockfight, you've got problems. Get the fuck off my channel. Toho? I came to see a man in a giant bird suit rampage across Japan with a good story and possibly a message thrown in. Grown-ass men fighting like a group of retarded chickens, ain't it, dog? In the Japanese mining village of Kitamatsu, miners are starting to disappear deep inside shaft number 8. Some of the men sent to investigate are killed, with their main suspect, Goro, still nowhere to be found while all this takes place. Soon, these giant prehistoric insects are found to be the cause when they begin attacking the village. Not long after, something traveling faster than the speed of sound is found flying in the sky that's seemingly invincible to all their weapons and light years more dangerous than the big bugs. So they gotta find out what this beast is and how to handle it. If you're familiar with how Honda made his horror movies, it won't come off as a surprise that Rodan takes its time to develop the plot. But you'd also know that this is for the greater good. Honda's way of doing things was simply to create proper tension and get the audience thinking. This is also the only piece of kaiju media I'm aware of that carries its own murder mystery, which helps it stand out more. Sure, Honda already brought seriousness and tension to Godzilla prior to this, but Rodan, though still keeps the right elements from that, also finds a way to execute the atmosphere and build up its own unique way. Of course, while Godzilla told the story about the suffering war and the Hiroshima bombing has done to Japan and its people, Rodan too has a connection of a giant nuclear radiated dinosaur out on the loose hurting others. Only it is an allegory for the danger of the Soviet Union instead of America's atomic bombing on Japan. Which is also why it still has such disturbing imagery of how innocent civilians were affected by it in such detail, and their loss of loved ones in the rough times. But there is also a less traumatic theme that is quite compatible with its Russian communism message, and that being love itself. Though the concept sounds considerably lighter in tone and more positive than Gojira, the way it's delivered certainly is not. Mainly when people hear stuff like this, what comes to mind is uncomfortable cheese. but that is because most depictions of it in art, though I wouldn't go as far as labeling cheesy, doesn't really go this length to show the agony and darker side to come with such a feeling. Nodon, on the other hand, shows the stupid stuff grief can simply cause you to do when losing someone you care about, even harassing family members of people you believe to be killers, along with having faith in the ones you love, even when it ain't looking good for them. This is a very mature way of handling the subject matter, and I will always appreciate the fact Honda took something as cliche as love and turned it into a dark tale with something unique to say that didn't boil down to some dumb shit about the power of love. I enjoyed that this one had shown the havoc that was occurring all over the world, since Nodon can fly and travel to all kinds of places whenever it really feels like it. I can't really think of much kaiju entertainment to have done this either, with the closest exception being Godzilla Final Wars. But that's different monsters being sent to different parts of the world by aliens, while this is two prehistoric nightmares going wherever they want to cause trouble. Calling Nodon a drama movie, I think, is a bit of a stretch, mainly because it's not present in the story enough to paint the label on it. But whenever the elements show up, they are powerful and bring out strong emotions Honda was good at doing. The ending would be a great example of this, having imagery of two lovers dying in a volcano with another heart-wrenching work by Akira Ifukube.
Rodan was not only the first of Toho's kaiju films to be made in color, as well as the first color giant monster film period, but also the first to not have any other pretenses besides giving its audience a thrilling and sometimes creepy good time. More like an American giant monster film than most other Japanese efforts, Rodan is all about mystery followed by final act spectacle, and it's certainly one of Ishiro Honda's most lively efforts in the genre, back before he grew tired of Toho limiting his directing to the kaiju genre. Rodan isn't without its own subtle themes, however, the one that comes to mind being that of love. No matter the species, or how corny it might sound, love perseveres through many an obstacle, even at the moment of death.
The characters admittedly aren't Honda's best work. They're fine and serve their efforts to our great story, but if you're hoping for individuals you'll always remember no matter how long it's been since you saw it, yeah, no. I like the dynamic between Shigeru Kawamuda and Kyo, played by Kenji Sahada and Yumi Shirakawa. He's always there for her, doing his best to comfort the young lady in her time of need, and she took care of him while he had amnesia in return, serving the film's message as they're both there for one another no matter what. Even being what leads to his memories getting retrieved and finding out what monster they're exactly dealing with. But we didn't get enough of it, unlike the love triangle with Sedozawa, Ogata, and Emiko in Gojira. Mainly because often it's focused on other things involving the plot, which I wouldn't want them trimmed down, mind you, but a little longer would have done these two justice. Both do at least carry themselves decently without the other, so that's something I can give it that Raids again failed on. When Kyo's facing harassment for the vile things her brother Goto been accused of, it delivers some realism since stuff like this happens all the time and it's unfortunate. I also found myself sympathizing with Kyo because she's forced to have the anxiety that Goto may have started hurting people left on her conscience, and having to put up with all these grieving individuals showing up at her home just for having a blood connection to a possible serial killer. Another cast member worth talking about is Akihiko Hirata as none other than Asian Clark Kent.
What? The f*** you mean his name is Choichiro? Well, shit.
Again, he's nothing deep in terms of characterization, and he remains the same person from start to finish. But he's written convincingly and comes up with his conclusions like I'd expect a real scientist to, and not stuff pulled straight from his arse. Akihiko Hirata is legendary, and no role from the actor I've seen has ever fell short from fantastic. And Nodon definitely is no exception. He takes everything seriously, and he comes off as super professional that never bullshits in any given scenario.
In executing the theme of love that I mentioned before, Rodan has two fine leads in Kenji Sahara and Yumi Shirakawa. Sahara makes a captivating debut here as Minor Shigeru, And while he would only have a couple of other leading man roles in the Mysterians and the H-Man before becoming part of Toho's ensemble cast throughout the 1960s, what a debut it is here, as Shigeru makes his way back through amnesia and then once again relives the moment that causes it. Yumi wouldn't pop up too often in films like Rodan after her work here and in the aforementioned Mysterians and H-Man, but she makes a capable counterpart to Sahara Shigeru as Kyo. She's something of a mousy, devoted, and doting female archetype, but it suits the role. The devotion of the two characters to one another is expressed in three ways. One, as Kyo faces harassment from locals as they suspect her brother Goro of foul play in the mystery unfolding. Two, in Shigeru's amnesia caused by the shock of seeing Rodan for the first time. And three, supporting each other during the onslaught of the Rodan pair. All of it mirrors the Rodan couple being side by side while they face a strange and hostile new world.
Like Honda's previous giant monster horrors, the suspense present in Rodan is super well done, building up towards many things without giving them away too early.
Probably kept that same energy around his wife, too.
First, we got a bunch of people just being mysteriously murdered, and their main suspect is Goro due to being short-tempered, always getting into fights, and on top of that, disappearing until the Mega Nula show up, bringing in a neat murder mystery never before seen in the genre. Then it becomes a fun but dark creature feature about giant mutant bugs,
So many unanswered questions. He looks like he was just getting sucked, but passed out the moment the blood bit the tip. I'm not even sure if he's really dead. Did he pass out from the loss of blood? Did he drown? Why in God's name am I even thinking about this? Fuck!
but then you have it slowly building up towards Rodan, which yes, they are the titled character, but still, each part working up to their arrival is chilling.
My back! Oh, my back!
And the parts they attack Japan is totally uneasy, a lot like Gojira was, which is where it hits being a full-fledged kaiju film. Again, Honda could have just went with the old reliable tactic by copy and pasting Gojira, but though he still kept the right elements in Rodan, he executes them in a unique way to offer a fresh flavor that doesn't feel overly familiar. If there's one thing I love about Honda's early kaiju films, it is despite the fact of being horror movies with an all-around dark theme, they never forget they are an action movie too, involving stunning sequences and musical score to replace our unease with excitement. To say more about these dope scenes, the set pieces look incredible, especially when they are crumbling under Rodan's attack, looking as close to real-life disaster as you'll get for the time period. The two Rodans of the movie are another new aspect to giant monster media. Sure, we had Godzilla vs. Anguillus, and even Kong's battle with the Meat Eater years before it, but you didn't see two kaiju working together, let alone ones that had a sexual connection with one another. Speaking of our titled Beast of Destruction, they're a perfect example that you can take an existing creature and make it stand as its own beast. Just one glance at Rodan side by side with any other creation of a pterodactyl on screen, you should automatically know which one is who. Didn't even need to combine a few Mesozoic creatures like Gojira to be original. Just had to take one dinosaur and stylize it enough to look like an oversized radioactive monster with a face and roar that can give anybody nightmares even decades later. The black soulless eyes gives the monsters an unnerving presence that's only been rivaled by the likes of Gojira, brought to life by remarkable suitmation effects that looks as impressively lifelike as you'll get from the late 50s. Of course, some parts age better than others, but watching enough older media, you should come to expect that one way or another. But what matters is the blood, sweat, and tears that was put into giving the creatures life and what they managed to accomplish for back then. The overall detail on the suit looks very reptilian-like while keeping the bird posture and such that pterodactyls are known to have. Nakajima-san was able to move around in the big bird suit freely with very little holding him back. Then there's the Mega Nulons, which later would show up in 2000's underrated gem, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. Best way I can sum up these cocks with legs is if those 8-legged pussies in the real world freak you out, I got news for you, honey. These ugly motherfuckers gonna have your testicles falling to the floor faster than a professor can neuter your ass. Hey, what if you're a chick? Shit, I don't know. Don't ask me these questions. Really though, these things are absolutely disgusting. The props carry this slimy skin tone to them that looks like it was pulled straight from the worst parts of nature. And that squeaking noise it makes, though might be annoying for some, brings suspense to the table before it's revealed what they look like, and it's intensely unsettling.
Now captured in color, E.G. Tsuburai's effects truly shine, whether it be through the best design Rodan had throughout the Showa Kaiju films, or in the meticulous miniatures which crumble in the wake of Rodan's sonic booms. Haruo Nakajima, famous for his portrayal of Godzilla, also played Rodan here in his debut film, and notably almost lost his life when the wires attached to his Rodan suit snapped and sent him into the tank of water below, trapped in a hot rubber that was already hard to breathe in. Certainly not a situation I would like to find myself. In all of Toho's kaiju films, it is the Rodan couple that behaves the most like animals, merely seeking food to survive and causing destruction only in defense and in response to their confusion at being alive long after their time. They probably served as some kind of subconscious influence on the Muto couple from Godzilla 2014. I didn't mention the Meganeurons at first, but that's mainly due to them playing the biggest part in the mysterious horror element that the film starts us out with. Playing like a Japanese version of them, but with giant dragonfly larvae instead of giant ants, the Meganeurons' murdering of miners for sustenance plays into the mystery the other miners find themselves in as they try to figure out what is going on, and even when they leave the film, they obviously tie into the moment of shock that makes Shigeru an amnesiac, that being the hatching of Rodan and his subsequent gobbling down of the giant larvae. The Meganeurons, along with their further evolution into Meganulas, would reappear in Godzilla vs. Megaguirus alongside their queen, the film's titular villain, and they were just as unnervingly murderous.
The soundtrack of Nodon is vastly superior to that of Godzilla Raids Again. This probably has a lot to do with the fact that Akira Ifukube returned to produce the score for the movie, and it's good to see he keeps the mix of dread and badassery that was present in his work for Gojira. It keeps the tone balanced out, recognizable, but nonetheless fresh and unique to this film alone. We've got the super unsettling theme for the two prehistoric birds of the story that makes all scenes it's available uncomfortable in all the right ways, and sets the tone of the movie, letting the viewers know they're getting into another dark kaiju film. But that doesn't stop him from still bringing totally exciting music to play over the military's battles with the radioactive pterosaur.
The other big element that plays into the horror aspect of Rodan is the music by Maestro Akira Ifukube, though it isn't the more well-known, and in my case preferred, theme associated with Rodan, a theme which was actually composed for the seemingly long-forgotten Varan. Here, Akira's music has a brooding but also descending sort of vibe, as if the film is gradually sinking into an impossibly horrifying situation, which is curious since Rodan doesn't have any of the almost apocalyptic imagery that Gojira featured just 2 years before. Observant viewers and listeners will also notice that an early version of the famous funeral dirge that Akira composed for Godzilla's death in Godzilla vs. Destroya is featured as the Rodans meet their end in the lava during the film's climax. Poetic, given the parallel between two creatures accepting defeat in the face of one's death, not unlike Godzilla accepting Godzilla Jr.'s death.
Nodon is another one of the greats the legend Ishiro Honda gifted us with. There's enough familiarity to know this is the crew who gave us Gojira a few years before, but is done in a new, refreshing way to avoid feeling like another copy just by the same crew this time. If Godzilla Raids Again disappointed you, and you decide to check out the next kaiju film by Ishido Honda before exploring more films with the G-Man, it should definitely satisfy your craving. That being said, I'm gonna award Rodan a 9 out of 10 stars. It may fall a bit short from reaching the score I awarded Gojira with due to the characters not reaching their full potential, but it sure as hell comes close.
Rodan has long been one of my favorite giant monsters in cinema history, and despite being one of Toho's big five alongside Godzilla himself, Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Mechagodzilla, he's always felt the most like a supporting player. Perhaps this is due to his solo film being a very straightforward monster on the loose type of feature, although it obviously has certain touches that viewers will only find in a Japanese kaiju film. One reason Rodan didn't have a film where it was just him and Godzilla fighting mano a mano is because it would have been deemed too similar to his own solo film. Regardless, Rodan became the highest-grossing sci-fi film of 1957 when it came to America, and was already a success in its native Japan the previous year. Perhaps it is best that he isn't overused like his co-stars Mothra and Ghidorah, as it makes the appearances he has made during every Godzilla era and this impactful solo debut all the more special. I give it a 5 out of 5.
Anyway, that was it for this episode.
I'd bitch about why this film existed after that fucking atrocity of an American edit in 1959, but despite the fact Giant Monster of the Sky Rodan being released a year after Godzilla Raids Again, Rodan the Flying Monster, oh, that's such a gay name, Jesus Christ, came only a year after the Japanese version, being 1957. There isn't really much to go off of in this film's history other than the Japanese version was a huge success and they felt the need to capitalize off it like they did with Gojira in 1956. With Godzilla King of the Monsters' success, another giant monster movie from Japan with a serious nature caught the audience's attention, and it became a massive box office success to the point it got a second run in 1959 alongside Gigantus the Fire Monster.
Guess they needed to offer some free fine dining before they let you dig in that pile of Finkel matter they scraped off your local cow's ass.
The story, again, isn't much different than the original, outside some things cut, new dialogue, and rearranged footage, though I don't feel the need to provide a plot summary. But my thoughts on the execution this time, it's okay. Yeah, good job misspelling Honda's name, you incompetent nuggets.
Minus 10 seconds. 9er, 8, 7, 6, 5er.
Fiverr? Does anybody in this English edit speak proper English? It's the fucking Americanized version! Hello! These people speak less English than the cast of the Japanese version. At least in that they're speaking an actual goddamn language. Did they just hire the local special ed students to write their script or what? Calm down, Joey. It's just a stupid edit. One thing Gigantus did succeed at, that is cutting some filler featured in Raids Again that should have been left on the cutting room floor. Giant Monster of the Sky Rodan thought this was a smart move too, and skims through its story, leaving a lot unexplored to their full potential, and gives off vibes that you're watching a best-of clip show only featuring pieces of one movie. This is what separates it from Godzilla Raids Again, since some aspects of that movie actually did feel dragged on, even though the overall product was good. Once again, the narration adds nothing to the film and just beats us on the head with Rodan's originally subtle message of love. I'm not saying knowing where the message is going is wrong, since it's quite obvious Gojira has a message focused on anti-nuclear allegory. But I'd like to believe there's a fine line between the message of the premise being obvious for the sake of atmosphere, than being all in your face about it and talking to us like we're dumb.
As Kyo-chan turned to weep on my shoulder, I realized the Rodans were doomed.
Well, no shit, pal. I would have never guessed.
Might as well tell us your mom's c***'s always wet, just to add to the list of shit we already knew.
Many of the cast from Gigantus was starred in this one prior. That being none other than George Takei as Kyoichiro Kashiwagi, having a much bigger role than he had in Gigantus actually. As good of an actor as he is, I was not impressed with his performance. Now for dub standards, this is fantastic, but for acting in general, he takes the character serious enough, but you can still tell he's a dubbed voice even just listening without visuals. It was Takei's first ever professional role before he started doing bigger and better things that weren't just American altered Japanese films like Lieutenant Hikaru in the popular sci-fi series Star Trek, so I guess I should give some credit when it is due here. Kei Luke's just as average as Shigeru as he was Shoichi Tsukioka. Nothing terrible, and does seem like he cares, but not good either. Everything I said about him last episode still applies here. Again, I still can't find the female performer, but I really couldn't care less because she comes off as overly whiny, while Yumi Shirakawa felt more like a distraught woman that was scared for her brother in Shigeru. As a surprise to absolutely nobody, they replace Ifukube's chilling atmospheric score with generic 50s garbage that really only managed to take away from the mood. Some points they added it didn't have music at all, mind you, but not everything is better than nothing. Haven't you heard that sometimes silence is golden? In Giant Monster of the Sky, Rodan, when there wasn't any music playing, there didn't need to be, or it was using the silence to create tension, which would eventually lead to scary tracks. Simply, if it's not broken, don't fix it. It's that easy.
Much like the Americanized Godzilla Raids Again, there's not a whole lot to say here, though it is commendable that when Rodan came to America, the plot and intent of his film was largely left intact, despite the fact that both of the dubs for Rodan and Gigantus feature overabundance of narration. Kei Luke, Paul Frees, and George Takei all are featured as they were in Gigantus. Rodan's edits, though, are minor, simply streamlining the story and emphasizing certain elements, such as there being 2 Rodans, and even additional cries of terror are added during the grand attack scene at the end. A prologue to connect to the usual atomic age woes is featured, but it's not near as intrusive as the stock footage on Gigantus.
So, Flying Monster Rodan. It's watchable if you haven't seen the Japanese edit, but if you have, you're probably not gonna get into it. It's not Gigantus bad, where it just butchers the Japanese version, leaving out most of what made it good, but it doesn't really add anything to make it worth a watch either. Because all that it does right, you can get in the original edit without the unnecessary flaws this one dropped into the product for no apparent reason but to Americanize it. I'm gonna give it an average 5 out of 10 stars.
Anyway, that was it for this episode. Please feel free to comment your thoughts down below, and if you liked this video, please hit that like button, share it around, and subscribe for more awesome content. Also go and support your boy Trev Thom. His channel is linked in the description down below alongside my social media accounts and alt tech. This is Daikaiju SpaceZilla, leaving the building.